this might be an interesting segue to the Bari Weiss thing with Chuck
Oh,
Schumer.
let's pull up the Bari Weiss thing. Yeah, let's talk all about how the corrupt media operates. Daily Mail reports, Bari Weiss reveals New York Times editors wanted to check with Chuck Schumer before running an op-ed by Republican Tim Scott about his police reform bill after George Floyd's murder.
What?
It's amazing. Tim Scott had a police reform bill, and the Democrats said no to it. And the New York Times wanted to check with Chuck Schumer. That's what Bari Weiss says. Former NYT opinion editor Bari Weiss told Senator Tim Scott on Wednesday about an internal discussion around his op-ed. Scott's article was the subject of an internal debate, Weiss said, and one of the senior editors questioned whether Republicans cared about minority rights. The New York Times denied her account, saying, the New York Times opinion never seeks outside approval or consultation, whether to publish guest opinion essays. I'm going to call BS on the New York Times. Mm-hmm. Having worked for many of these, organizations, this is the exact kind of stuff you see.
Yep.
Absolute corruption.
Yep. And also, Bari is actually trustworthy.
Yeah, she's been doing pretty well with her Substack.
Yeah.
I trust her way more. I think she gets some things wrong, but that's fine. I think she's more trustworthy in her assessments than the New York Times.
And she's also just telling a rendition of something she witnessed. She's credible.
Yeah.
She's a credible witness. She has no reason to make this up. She's moved on from the New York Times. She's very successful. She's making more money than she did.
Well, a reason she could make it up is to get back at them for something.
But why not say it sooner?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not Bari Weiss. But
I think more people should speak out about this stuff sooner rather than later. And she mentioned it was in 2020, but she's been independent for a long time. So why not say something sooner?
I know, it's quite the hat trick.
Gonna have to have her on the show and ask her about it. It's topical. And I'm not saying that she's lying. I'm just saying that,
I wonder too if there's, sorry to be.
Oh no, go for it.
There's a lot of stuff she could probably say. You can't, if you publish your memoir the day you leave or, in 2020, stuff is going to get missed. Like in some ways, I didn't read this article, so I can't say what the context, like where she brought it up. But
it was a conversation with Tim Scott.
Right. And I feel like there was a lot of stuff she could tell us about what happened there. If she doled it all at once, I think it would get kind of lost. The impact would get lost.
Yeah, I mean, from the reporting, she was having a conversation with Tim Scott, and she said, I don't know if you know this, but this is what happened. And so I think it was sort of a natural thing. I mean, it makes me wonder what other stories she has under her hat. And I think that there was a lot of, I think she should have sued the New York Times personally, because it was, workplace bullying and intimidation and everything. And I think that there was some stuff that happened that in the moment she felt like she was crazy, because everyone was like, well, yes, of course we talked to Chuck Schumer about it. We just wanted to clear it. And she's kind of like,
but why do we clear things with Chuck Schumer?
What? And I think it's, as you exit the cult, she's kind of like, that was really messed up, wasn't it? And she's kind of having that realization and sort of unpacking her own experience, because I think she was so abused in the moment.
You ever see Bulworth, that movie?
No.
You ever see it? Bulworth? No.
Kevin Costner? No, that's what's his name? Warren Beatty. I think
it's the one where the senator is like super depressed and wants to kill himself. So then he just starts telling the truth and like he doesn't care anymore. But then he like decides he wants to live or whatever. He like goes up on stage at a black church and they're like, why didn't you deliver this bill? And he's like, because we got your vote. We don't care. The moment you went and voted for us, we stopped caring about what you thought. And then they were like, what? And then people ended up really liking it. I think that with, people like Bari Weiss, she's probably sitting on a whole bunch of other stuff. And I'd say like, come on, like, of course she is. That she's not going to talk about because she's probably scared about what will happen if she challenges the machine.
And I mean, if you were in a cult, you participated in the cult, right? So there's probably stuff that she's, I could imagine, not proud of or not ready to talk about her involvement in, right? And I don't necessarily hold that against her. It's a complicated thing to come out of something or to disassociate or something from an ideology you've been wrapped up in for a long time. But some of her stories, she's in the rooms for a reason. She's involved with the organization. So I
she was a junior staffer. I mean, I think that I think it's hard to be in that moment. I mean, she was in that newsroom and everyone around her was just, they wanted to throttle her. And I can't imagine what that feels like
No.
to go day after day somewhere where everyone hates you. And one misstep, like you didn't wash your hands after you left the bathroom, can become like a viral Twitter thread of your colleague who's sitting like our distance apart from each other. But I don't know if she's scared of them anymore. I think that she's burned that bridge and she's not looking back.
Didn't someone who works with her write that terrible article about Jordan Peterson and enforced monogamy? So you wondered like to what degree they were participating, and they decided like, I don't want to do this. I don't necessarily trust a lot of people, especially if it takes them 2 years to come out and be like, oh, by the way, this really crazy thing happened. It's like that's the kind of thing where I'd be like, I want to quit. And in fact, when I worked for Fusion and they started doing this stuff, I tried quitting, but I was under contract. So instead, I just stopped participating in their BS system, and then immediately started telling everybody about it, just like screaming it. And they really don't like it. The fact that they would stealth edit articles and told me not to report on the New York Times doing stealth editing because they would get exposed for doing it as well. And I was like, I'm going to tell everybody. Are you nuts? You mean you're violating journalistic standards? You think I'm going to keep that a secret? Bro, I'm a journalist. Like, my goal is to inform the people, not be like a tribalist for some corporation. You think I care about Fusion's bottom line? Like, I'm here to tell people what's going on in the world. So when the president of that company said, we're here to side with the audience in reference to how we handle bias and perspective, basically said, or he said young people are progressive, so that's who we're going to side with. We're going to side with them. And when I said, does that mean if there's a fact-based news story that would offend our audience, we don't report it? And he says, yeah, I think that's fair. And I immediately told everybody, and then he denied it. And I'm like, whatever, man. Of course they're going to deny it. Like, these people aren't journalists. They're businessmen who are like, how do we make money? Say what the people want to hear. There are a lot of people working for these organizations who know it. James O'Keefe, the man is doing the Lord's work when he exposed CNN, and you can see these people saying like, we used to do the news, now we don't. Those people aren't speaking out. Those people aren't coming out and explaining to everybody they're lying to their faces. But behind the scenes, they're saying it in private. It takes a special kind of person to know you are engaged in operating an evil machine that destroys this country, but be like, I need the paycheck.
I don't know if that's it. I mean, I think speaking up for Bari, I'm not going to speak up for the rest of them, but I mean, she and I had this experience as someone who wrote for Bari for the New York Times. She fought really hard to get sanity on the pages and to get different perspectives published in the Times that wouldn't have otherwise been there. And I think that she swallowed a lot of stuff for a long time that made her deeply uncomfortable because she felt like it was for the greater good. And I think she got to a point where she realized that is a calculus that no longer, it's not equaling out anymore. I'm not doing more good inside the machine than outside the machine. I think that that's when she left, but she fought very hard for a while to operate under, behind enemy lines. And I think it just got to the point where she realized like it just wasn't tangible anymore. And she wasn't having enough of an impact to justify not just, being part of the machine, but also just the mental health strain that she was under and the assault that she was under by all of her colleagues. But yeah, I respect her for staying as long as she did.
But I mean, there's people at CNN that James O'Keefe exposed.
Yeah.
They're like talking to this hidden camera saying, look at all the really awful things this company does. And they're still there. And they know. That's the craziest thing to me. These people are caught on camera talking about how they know they're involved in malfeasance.
But I think they think it's for the greater good,
No. They're telling hidden camera, like, CNN is destroying everything.
Right, I know.
And we are helping them. And then they're like, but we're going to stay.
But I think they think ultimately it is for the greater good because they are setting a narrative that they think is important to be changed. I'm saying undercover camera exposes, they're admitting they're doing wrong.
Are you saying it's sort of like they're accelerationists? They're like, look, we got to burn it down, and we are willing to burn it down in this way.
No, like there's one famous guy who's like sitting in a chair, and he's like, or one of the famous exposés is a guy who's like, we used to go out and report the news, man. Now all we do is just complain about Trump and just try and drive this.
And he thinks that's a good, but I think they think that's a good thing.
But he's complaining about it, and he's saying he hates being there.
I think it's annoying, but ultimately, I think that given the choice between straight news reporting and trashing Trump,
But this is a guy who's saying he wished they did real news reporting.
I think he wants to say that, and but obviously he doesn't actually believe it, or he would have left.
Right.
Well, Einstein said that's the definition of an insanity, is when you keep doing the same thing,
Yes.
expecting a different result. And these people that are staying there expecting it, if they really are, they believe it's going to get better by staying there, they're insane, according to Einstein. It's a very general term, but it could be a form of insanity. I don't think that's a pass to do it, but that could be an explanation of why.
I agree with you in that
What makes
regard, that a
people
lot of
insane?
people say they want things, but they really don't. Like they either don't want it or they actually just don't care enough to pursue going after something. So maybe for a lot of these people, they just think, this CNN's culture behind the scenes is to rag on the company for being garbage, but no one really cares.
I mean, but also, where do they go? Like, in their industry, I mean, it's kind of like, great sort of all the complaints that you hear about parents of kids in private schools, and they complain and they complain. I'm thinking of the sort of the folks that are talking about like the wokeness in all these private schools, and they stay because it's the pinnacle of achievement. And I think that these people at CNN, this is the pinnacle of professional achievement in their industry. And so where do they go? What do they do? There's no next step. And so they're just sort of stuck in a holding pattern because they care more about their job
That's my point, though. They care more about their personal lives than they do about the system they're participating in.
Yeah, I mean, not just, but I don't think it's just the paycheck. I think it's also their pride. I think it's a lot of their sort of self-identity, and they would rather that than,
It's probably why they demoted Taylor Lorenz. The behind-the-scenes scuttlebutt was that longtime staffers were losing their minds, complaining that she was like besmirching the organization and tarnishing its name.
She was
absolutely.
terrible PR for that company.
Yeah, and they thought the controversy was going to generate traffic. So this is what I heard this from someone who had like behind-the-scenes access or something like that.
This is
at Washington Post.
Yeah, okay.
That the long-standing employees of the Washington Post, like the older people, were like, you are destroying the legacy of this company. And that apparently there were people there who thought that Taylor Lorenz was going to generate traffic through like controversy or stuff like that. I don't want to say anything that's confirmed. It's just rumor mill stuff.
I've heard the same rumors.
Right. So they're journalists. And so I wonder if the Washington Post was like, these people are going to quit on us and then we have nothing. So we got to do something. And so they demoted Taylor Lorenz. And
I mean, I don't think that's why they I think that they just decided that she was a liability.
Toxic.
Yeah, I think she became a
that's
liability.
what I mean. She was a liability. People were like, there was a risk to the company.
But I don't think it was a risk to the company. I just think that they realized that
that's what a liability is.
No. I think that they realized that she has no loyalty, and that any controversy that she conjures, it's often going to be at their expense because she doesn't care about the brand. She just cares about herself. And so I don't think that they were worried that people were going to quit. I think they were worried that she was a beast that was about to turn on them.
Someone told me that when we put up the billboard in Times Square saying she doxed libs of TikTok, that she immediately went and demanded they file a suit or something and like file a legal thing to get it taken down. And they were like, it's an opinion statement. You can't do anything about it. And she like lost it. And then she went on Twitter and said it was so stupid and laughable. And then I responded to her and I was like, I'm glad you think it's funny. Great. You got to say your thing. I got to say my thing. And then she lost it. She blocked me and started screaming like it's violence or whatever. And I'm like, okay, dude, whatever, man. Someone pointed out to me that Timcast.com has a higher credibility rating than CNN.com.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's true. That is in fact true.
Look at that.
That's kind of funny. CNN's garbage, so.
Imagine what we'd have if other stuff wasn't going on.
Thanks for checking out this segment from the Timcast IRL podcast. But if you want to check out the full show live, tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. And if you want more special access content, head over to timcast.com and become a member. Your membership helps sustain this company, keep our journalists employed, makes this show happen, and you will get access to exclusive members-only segments of the Timcast IRL podcast, and there's a massive library to check out. So again, go to timcast.com or tune in Monday through Friday at 8 p.m., and we'll see you all there.